Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to kick off the next session, which is on startup presentations on low carbon agriculture and food. I'm going to introduce myself, then we will introduce Soumitra, and then we will go to each person's slides where they will introduce themselves, talk about the problem statement, the market size, the solutions, and probably answer one or two questions that they've come that we have sent out to them, right? So my background, I've been in focused on sustainable development for the last 16 years. Been very fortunate to work on some of the most cutting-edge solutions for climate change for the last 16 years. I started my journey at Infosys, was the head of sustainability for them for 8 years. And most recently, I was working in the Agri-Tech sector for a company called UPL. They had done a startup called Nurture, which is focused on sustainable agriculture. So that's how I've got the opportunity to come and talk to you out here. But it's been a very, very fascinating journey and very, very rewarding. And I hope many of the startups here go through the same rewarding journey. I've been more on the corporate side and now going to wear a different hat on investing very soon. The agriculture sector per se has a very, very deep impact on the planet. About 20%, I mean, the way why I'm saying a deep impact is because 40% of the non-ice earth mass is in agriculture today. And as our population increases by another 2 billion in the next 30 years, that 40% will change to 50 or 60, and it's not possible, right? We cannot do land use change again and again and more land use change, right? And so the whole focus is how do you deliver more from less? How can you deliver more crop from less inputs, less emissions, less water, less land, and less energy? And that's the challenge in front of all of us, right? And it not only consumes 40% of the Earth's landmass, but 70% of all the fresh water, it comes from agriculture. Maybe 80% of all the nitrous oxide emissions, which has a very high greenhouse gas potential, comes from agriculture. 45% of all the methane comes from agriculture. So you see it has a very, very deep impact per se, right? And of the 40%, which is 5 billion hectares, 3 billion hectares is dedicated to animal agriculture. And what we are going to hear from our panelists today is how that 3 billion is under threat with the new innovations happening in food tech and how animal agriculture, which we domesticated animals 10,000 years ago to provide us meat, but the animals are used in agriculture in a number of uses, right? From leather from agriculture, from meat in agriculture, to milk from cows. And all of that is now getting threatened by these new technologies, the new age of precision fermentation, plant-based meat, cellular agriculture. And what has been happening over 10,000 years is likely to change in the next 20 years. So something that is going on for 10,000 years is changing in 20 years. And that's the most exciting part, in my opinion, on climate tech investments. So we would love to hear from all of these participants here, the founders, about what they feel about their areas of focus in agriculture, in milk, and in meat, in meat. And before that, I think I'm going to hand over the mic to Soumitra to talk about his views on where he's finding opportunities to invest.
Thank you, Rohan. I'd like to thank Narsi, IT Madras, and EAI to let me share the stage with great founders and very illustrious Rohan. I'd begin by introducing myself. The sessions have been very serious, so I'll try to joke around a little bit. If some of those jokes fall flat, please have the courage to forgive me. So my name is Soumitra. Background-wise, I went to the other IIT in the western part of India called IIT Bombay, so please don't hold that against me. IIT Madras is a great institution, but I think Bombay might be better. No undergrads here, right? Okay. Then I went to the US for 20 years, did my master's at MIT, also did my MBA at Kellogg. But in between, for 8 years, I was in a biotechnology space in the US, making drugs for multiple sclerosis and cancer. Around that time, my mind changed. I felt India has great potential in terms of renewable energy generation. So I started my own company in India. So I'm also a founder, so I share a lot of ethos with the founders. Um, Not a heartless VC, not a vulture capitalist, but maybe a bit more on the entrepreneur side than on the VC side. So I built a company called Claro Energy back in 2011. Those of you who have heard of this thing called solar pumps, which is actually part of Low Carbon Agri, was something that was designed by my company back in 2011, which is now called the Prime Minister's Kusum scheme. It's a $1 billion subsidy, central subsidy scheme. So through that lens, I understood agriculture, the problems of agriculture. I also created a market linkage company called Claro Agro, trying to link produce with the end consumers so that there is less wastage. So through these things, I was at the nexus of renewable energy and agriculture, and I got great insights into the diversity of agriculture, the challenges of agriculture, and the overwhelming opportunity as well as the challenges that we have, right? So that's all about me. My view on low carbon agriculture, these are very heavy, fancy words, but I think it is a necessity. We just can't avoid it given the, and please again, pardon the word, given the shit that we are in and will continue to be in for the next 20 years if we don't solve it. And anyone who's serious about solving climate change has to solve about India, because we have so many people, the agriculture, pressure on agriculture would be so much, and if we don't improve efficiencies and low carbon means of that agriculture, I think we would be gone, but you guys might not have a very good planet to live on. So with that, I'll pass it on to you, Rohan. Thank you.
The way we'll do it, Siddharth, is introduce yourself personally, then your company, the opportunity, the problem statement, the market size, and the solution that you're working on, and then maybe you can answer one of the questions that you have.
Perfect. Thank you everyone, and I'm glad and excited to be part of this event for the second time. And I've seen how that has changed, how the mindset has changed the last 1 year, and how more rejuvenating the whole audience is. So with that, I'm Siddharth. I'm the co-founder at ClearMeat. So I am another party to IIT. So I'm anti-IIT. I'm from JNU. So don't count me in on those lines. But moving ahead, so I did my PhD in biotechnology with a focus on synthetic biology. And we are not IIT guys, but from a JNU perspective, we talk a lot. Okay. So from a JNU perspective, we talk a lot. And sorry, you were unable to hear me on those lines. But when we went into a ClearMeat model, we never thought of identifying solutions for the climate. We went into this domain because we had certain strategies that were more into drug discovery pipeline. But parallelly, we realized that how important the climate changes are happening and how what is the urgency behind the whole setup. Speaking of ClearMeat, we are India's first and only ISO certified lab-grown cultivated meat company, which focuses on making meat in lab. And it's slightly surprising to see that most of the people in India are aware of this technology, and this we have realized in the last 4 years. But globally, it has been observed that India is a country which does not understand climate change. And from my experiences, I've seen that India is far better when it comes to understanding climate change and figuring out the right solutions. With the ClearMeat, what we are trying to do is we are identifying the right technological advances required for food technology to be made more climate sustainable. Not from the perspective of agriculture, yes, we do not come from a background of agriculture, but from the perspective of biotechnology, how laboratory science can be made market applicable. Coming to the second question, that what is the market size? India, from a meat point of view, 70% of Indians eat meat. And this is as per 2015 data, census data. And you will be surprised to hear that we had a small survey done with Licious, and we found that the delicacies adopted in India are far greater than one could ever expect. So India, as a meat-eating country, is expected to grow at a rate of 16% every year. There is a huge meat demand arising. apart from becoming the 5th largest manufacturer or exporter of meat. So there is a huge market growth plus a huge impact on climate also, which we through such events have to figure out, and this is what we at CLIMAFIX are trying to do. Thank you.
Can you share what kind of meat are you cultivating in your lab?
So currently we have already made a chicken keema, and we are also working on camel meat. We are working on fish. We are working on mutton. We have more delicacies to offer in our kitty, but that's going in the pipeline. So,
how long does it take to cultivate 1 kilo of, say, any of these meats?
So one has to first understand the methods adopted while making meat. So there are 2 ways of making meat. One is the hybrid model, and another is the 100% meat model. Speaking of a 100% meat model, it's for the precision fermentation based methodology. The TAT for that is 45 days to make somewhere around 1 to 500 kg depending on the instrumentation used. And speaking of a hybrid model, which we have adopted as of now, we are able to churn out 1 kg every 3 days. So this is in a very, I would say, a small environment, but yes, it is scalable.
So in terms of inputs and outputs, how efficient is this process?
See, if you speak of a laboratory scale process, yes, it would not be at par the expectation numbers. So when you speak of making meat, so the numbers are for every 1 kilo of meat made through sustainable models that we have created, we are able to save 1 cow, 1 hen when I speak of chicken keema, and we are able to save somewhere around 3.5 metric tons of carbon emission. Now, how this impacts is, how you save cow through making chicken is, to grow cells in lab, you require fetal bovine serum. We had an ad running on how milk is taken from cows. We as Indians do not realize how much cows are killed or how much pregnant cows are killed in the process of doing research. And this is something which we went, when we saw through our own eyes, we realized that this is not only a very notorious way of doing research, but also a highly unsustainable, ethical way of doing research. And this is where our strategies are in place.
So this is really fascinating to see 45 days to deliver 1 kilo of meat. Now a cow, when you grow a cow, it takes probably 4 years to do the same thing, and you're doing it in 45 days. So I don't think a cow can compete with something like what you're doing. I mean, a cow is 4% efficient. And so in your opinion, how many years will it take to eliminate cows from the meat industry?
See, frankly, cows will never be eliminated from the meat industry. We have to understand this, that this will always be an option in the industry, because to all those who are vegetarians, I am sorry to say, but for non-vegetarians, we are bound by the taste of meat because of the blood component. Achieving that blood component is slightly tedious, and this was the challenge for the plant-based industry also. And similarly, we are also not only facing the blood challenge, but also the tenderness challenge. So it will take at least few generations to replace it completely, but yes, there will be some impact.
So, I'd love to add something. I think some of these entrepreneurs are literally presenting their life's work in 5 minutes. So, whenever they present and end, can we have a big round of applause for them?
So before we go to Vanchana, maybe Soumitra, can you respond to the question I asked last? What do you find very interesting as part of Merak Ventures? Where are you investing in agriculture and food tech?
Sorry, I forgot to answer that first time. I was trying to duck out, but not really. So Merak Ventures, quick introduction, is a $100 million fund. Its first fund was called GrowX Ventures. Very early stage of the VC industries when that fund was born. It made its mark in really some cutting-edge investments that the fund didn't think it was climate, but fundamentally it was supporting the solutions for climate that would now emerge. So one of the company is a space tech company called Pixel, low orbit hyperspectral image satellites. Primary application is agriculture. The second investment was a company called Race Energy, makes swappable batteries with very high power densities. Did not realize at that time, but the fundamental problem is mobility and transition to EV. one of the first investors in these two sectors. The other sectors is a semiconductor sector where chip-to-chip communication, where all the algorithms that we will run for climate can be done a lot faster and cheaper. Didn't realize, but the primary application is going to be solutions for climate. The other company is, no, I could go on and on, but this fund then realized that we have to have a dedicated focus on climate. I'm another person who's trying to articulate the climate investment thesis for Merak. We look at broadly 5 areas. The first one being agriculture and food, which is the topic of today. Really tremendous impact of agriculture on greenhouse gas emissions. So we want to be able to support companies that are changing the food systems, companies that are increasing the productivity of farmers, so more for less in any way, through technology, through business models, through new way of doing things is what we support, and if it's technology focused, we definitely come in. EVs and mobilities, I think 50% of investments that in India are anyway going into those industries. We continue to play, but that industry is taking off faster. We'll continue to invest in that. Carbon and carbon markets, if some company is actually reducing the impact of carbon on agriculture, how could they be incentivized so that they do better than other people? We really have to reward companies in climate by making them the most successful, profitable companies, because money follows money. And climate companies are going to save the climate, therefore they need to be rewarded a lot more than other companies that are polluting the climate. That's the new world order. So we think that carbon markets and stability is an area that will invest. Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3. There are all ways of looking at that same carbon markets. We are active players in that. The other two that are very important is finance. I think nothing will happen if more finance, not just venture equity, but debt, structured finance, gets into the hands of companies in climate, because software is not going to remove CO2 from the atmosphere. It will be some hard engineering and science things that will. For example, lower cost financing for clear meat, for setting up their infrastructure, will give more money into their pockets, will help them do more research and come out with all the things that Siddharth talked about, maybe faster than later, right? Last thing, because weather patterns are changing, we all know that the data that we looked at for weather prediction a year ago is not relevant. And there are many such instances about data that will be fundamentally different in today's market than they were before. So digital data solutions for climate industry is also a stack that we are actively looking at across the globe and are willing to fund. That's the broad thesis. Thank you.
Thank you, Soumitra. We now move on to our sponsor for the day, our sponsor for the event. Thank you so much, Vanshita, for sponsoring the event, and I'll hand over the mic to you.
Thank you. So we're from Akshayakalpa, and before we get started with the part about Akshayakalpa, I have a question to the audience. How many of you are from, your fathers, forefathers were farmers? How many of you here are from farmer families? Great, okay. How many of you have farmlands right now which you're not cultivating? Okay, great. If I could have the slides, yeah. If you could move on. The average age of farmers in India today is 50. Young farmers are leaving farming. There's a research to say that over 2,000 farmers leave farming every single day. And this is happening because farming is not viable. It's economically not viable. They're not able to make money. They're not able to fulfill the livelihood needs through farming. And so they're abandoning farming, right? So that's the first thing that is happening. The second thing is that in the last 40 years, 2/3 of arable land on the planet has been destroyed. This is happening again at a very devastating rate. This is happening because of over-exploitation, over-cultivation, use of pesticides, chemical pesticides and fertilizers. And so this is the second big problem that we are sitting with, right? So if this continues over the next 40, 50, 60 years, we will have no farmers and we'll have no farmland, right? And we'll have no one to grow our food. And with this, we'll be completely disengaging our biggest climate sequestering mechanism, which is farming, right? So this is the problem that Akshayakalpa is dealing with. So we have a case in point, an example for this, which is the declining history of coconut yield. What had happened is that in 2010, when we started the company, we operate out of this place called Tiptur, which is the copra belt of India. And we did a survey to understand the yield per tree per annum, right? And through the survey, we found out that it is at 55 nuts per tree per annum. Then we wanted to know, what is the baseline for this? Is there any survey that was done at any point? And we found that the British had done a survey in 1903 and 1905. And at that point, the yield per tree per annum was 185, right? So in a little over 100 years, we've brought it down from 185 to 55. So this is the devastating effect of everything that we are doing today with farming. And it's only a rabbit hole from here, right? If we continue to do things the way we are doing, it's only going down from here. So the question is all lost. At Akshayakalpa, we want to look at it with more hope than feeling depressed about it. And so we have taken steps to go back to basics. That's what we have done at Akshayakalpa. The first thing that we are doing, that we have worked on, is to make farming viable again and ensure that farmers can feel that farming is a profession. With farming, that they can earn well, right? Sitting in their farms, not moving away from farms, they can do good work. So to do this, what we have done is we have first made sure that they are climate farmers. When they become organic farmers, they put life back into soil. And when they do that, they are able to make better money. And there are customers on the other side who are willing to pay a premium for this, who understand the value of high quality food, and they're willing to pay a premium. And we are finding ways to bridge this gap and connect the two, right? The second thing that we are working very heavily on is to restore soil. The picture that you're seeing is of our farm in Puriyambakam, which is 70 kilometers from Chennai. I would urge all of you to come to our farm and spend a day over there to understand everything that we're doing. We have a farm visit program that's live. These are raisin beds, if you could just go back. What you're looking at, these are raisin beds. Basically, when you plant vegetables, the seeds in these raisin beds, what happens is that there is no soil erosion that is happening. And the water absorption capacity of raisin beds is a lot higher than if you just, plant it directly on the ground. So it's, to some extent, it climate proofs everything that we do. So that's the next thing that we're doing. The next one is harvesting water. So when we started working in Puriyambakam, again, it's a 20-acre farm. 4 years back when we started, people told us that there's no way you can grow anything over here because this piece of land gets flooded every single year. So whatever you try to grow, it's only going to get destroyed, right? And they were right. In the first year, that happened. But we slowly started finding ways to manage that. And we started harvesting all the water that was flooding our fields. And in 4 years, we've reached a place where we are able to harvest all the water that is coming and use it during summer. So that's the next step that we've taken. This is very interesting, actually. We've integrated grass for higher sequestration. Trees are heroes when we talk about, carbon sequestration. We believe that trees do all the work, but actually grass does more sequestration compared to trees. So we have integrated grass, which is also fodder for the cows, into all our farms, and making sure that no topsoil is exposed to the sun. So while the sequestration happens through grass, we have also integrated animals for closed loop system. The animals, the cows, eat the grass that we've grown, the fodder that is grown, and then they produce cow dung, which goes back into the soil and puts life back into the soil. Trenching and bunding is another very interesting way to put water back into the soil for retention of soil carbon. Intercropping, also what it does is it covers the topsoil. So when topsoil is not exposed, the nutrition remains in the soil. So we do that. We do a lot of that with bananas and coconuts. We've integrated poultry very good, the manure is a very good source of nitrogen, so we've integrated that, and it's also good income for the farmers and nutrition for the customers. We've integrated beekeeping, and we've seen improved productivity and income. So if you see the coconut story which I told you, after we integrated beekeeping into our farms, we've seen a very good increase in coconut yields. And the last one is to win consumer love, right? So we go out, we tell our story, we meet people like you, we're telling the Akshayakalpa story to all of you. We also have a farm visit program where people come and spend 2 days at the Akshayakalpa farm. They stay and they understand everything that is being done. And we're connecting them to the source of food. Young mothers are very happy to bring their children and introduce them and show them how vegetables are grown, show them how cows are taken care of. So that's the last thing that in this presentation that I would like to speak of. So we started with hope. What is the result of having done this for the last 13 years? The two numbers that I want to speak of. The first one is the average household income of Akshayakalpa, a farmer, right? In 2004 was at around 21,000. Today we are talking of him touching around 98,000 to a lakh. We have farmers who are earning 2.5 lakhs per month. We have farmers who are earning 5 lakhs per month. And that's completely dependent on their ambition and how entrepreneurial they want to be and how much they want to expand, right? So that's where we have gotten with our farmers. And with the soil carbon, the Amazon rainforest soil carbon is at 7.8%, right? And that's the benchmark that we have in mind and we are working towards. And soil carbon overall has fallen drastically. It's at around 1%, right? I think the average if you take. And the Akshayakalpa soil carbon, after having worked for 13 years, is now at 3.6%. And we want to keep working on this and keep taking this number higher and higher. So that's the Akshayakalpa story.
So in terms of scale, how many farmers have now joined your program, and what is your future scale program?
So around the Tiptur area, we are at around 1,000 farmers, which is in Karnataka. Around close to Chengalpettu, Puriyambakam area, we have around 300 farmers who are trying to become Akshayakalpa farmers. It's a long process. It takes a minimum of 3 years for them to convert the land to organic and also to learn how to take care of their cows differently. Traditionally, conventionally, you tie up the cows, right? There's a rope going through the nose. Akshayakalpa farm, you're not supposed to do that. You have to leave the cows free. They need to have access to food and water 24/7. A cow requires 25 kg of food every single day. So when we see them, scrambling around in the garbage dumps in the city, that's what they're trying to fulfill, right? So all of these things the farmer needs to now learn to take care of and learn to take care of differently. The other thing that we also work with the farmers is that it's a husband-wife combination, and they can take care of up to 25 cows. That's what we work on. Yeah, there's no need of labor.
How easy it is to scale your products to the consumers?
It's not easy. I think it's taken us a lot of time to get to where we are. In Bangalore, the way we grew was through word of mouth. The quality of our product is extremely good. We are very, very obsessed with quality. For example, we check for antibiotics at every single farm, every single day. To give you a perspective, dairy industry is over 1 lakh crores in India. Akshayakalpa is a very, very small, it's a drop in the ocean, the kind of company that we are. But we are the largest buyers of antibiotic strips in the country, because that's the obsession with which we are checking and ensuring that the milk is free of all the nasties that we speak of.
That's quite incredible. Congratulations. Thank you very much. We'll now shift to Malesh. Malesh, we would love to first introduce yourself, your company, and then the challenges that you're facing in terms of smallholder farmers or whatever you're working on.
Thank you, Rohan. Thanks for this opportunity, and to the organizers as well. My name is Malesh. I'm from a company called Cultivate based out of Bangalore. My name is Malesh. I'm from a company called Cultivate based out of Bangalore. We work with farmers who actually do a lot of activities in paddy fields. When I say a lot of activities, they spend their time in growing paddy, and most often they don't understand the challenges. And as consumers, most of us may not realize how much water is being used by a farmer in growing paddy. I would like to ask if any one of you can tell how much water the farmer consumes to grow in 1 hectare. Any idea? Sorry? 1 acre 3,000 plus liters. How many of you agree with that? Yeah, she is almost right. 1 kg is 5,000 liters. For a farmer to grow paddy in 1 hectare area, he consumes close to 2 crore liters. So you can imagine how much water is consuming. Now, is it really required is a question. There are different technologies. What we adopted is something that was already existing in the industry for last almost 30, 40 years. But we brought in the element of data analytics into that. So that's how we made it smart and give more confidence to the customer farmer, saying that when you adopt this technology, there are different benefits. Can you bring the presentation, please?
Can you please help him load the presentation?
Sorry.
Malesh, in the meanwhile, why don't you introduce yourself first?
I come from a background of engineering. I used to work in software industry, and I've been passionate about agriculture. So I bought my first farmland way back in 1998 kind of time frame to understand what is it to be like a farmer and how can I make farm profitable, like what Vachana mentioned, by working half an hour a day. Because while I was working in IT, I did not want to spend my full time in farming. I wanted to run it typically like an IT company. So that's how I got started. Then I got inquisitive into that. I understood there is money that can be made, provided you run the agriculture like a typical industry. So that's how I brought in. And one of the problems that you already mentioned is the area is reducing and the available resources are reducing, but the population is increasing. So there is a need for us to make sure that every resource what is available to be working more efficiently. That's one of the problems that we are trying to address. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, typically it consumes around 2 crore liters, and what you're seeing on the right hand side is something that was already in the industry. That is called Panika pipe. What it essentially means is a small around 18-inch pipe that is embedded into the ground, which will help the farmer to understand what is the water level in the paddy field. Because most often farmers are flooding the field for a duration of 100 to 120 days because water is free and electricity is free. And what they don't realize is paddy can be grown with roughly around 15 to 20% water. But to do that, it's a complete cultural shift. So, So what you are seeing on the right hand side, that was a technology that was existed. But the biggest challenge is farmer has to go to field to understand what is the water level. And if they are not doing it in a meticulous fashion, obviously there is going to be a crop loss. That means if the roots get damaged, there will be yield loss on that. And that's where farmers were kind of little bit hesitant. Plus, if the gaps are too much, it will also generate give way to weed growth. So they have to spend more money in weed management. So that was the biggest problem that we have addressed. So how does our technology work? It's a sensor that's sitting in the field, as you are seeing on the right hand side. And the way the sensor works is it continues to collect the data, which is the water level in the paddy field, once in every 30 minutes. And whenever it touches certain threshold, which is close to the root zone level, it will send a message to farmer. Now most of us are busy attending this conference, so if there is a message, we may not see that. That could be exception, right? But otherwise, once in every 10-15 minutes, we always keep checking the mobile, as if without that we can't survive. But whereas when it goes to a farmer, most often he will not check the messages. That was one of our big challenge. Because when we started this company around 5-6 years back, we did market study to understand what is the mobile penetration. And we realized roughly around 80-85%. And in Punjab, we realized there are a lot of farmers who have got smartphone along with the feature phone. So we made an assumption saying that when you initiate some activity based like a message to farmer, he's going to accept it. But it took us 1 year to understand farmers will not see the message. So first year of learning, when you send a message, around 30% of the farmer respond. So we improved the technology saying that if farmer is not looking at the message, he is going to be listening to the calls or he responding to the calls. So that's where second year we improvised it saying that if the farmer has not taken action based on our advisory, we initiate a call to farmer. So that improved our advisory, our adherence to the advisory to 60%. That means out of every 100 farmer, we would send a message, around 50 to 60% responded, took action, helping us to reduce the water. But our intention is to move as close as to 100. So the third level intervention was escalating it to the field officer. Because every project, when we are doing in a community-based model, there will be local resource partners. So we would escalate to him saying that out of this 140 people have not responded, please talk to them. So now he is not going to be talking to all 100 wasting his time, but he is going to handpick those 40 farmers who did not take any action. So that's how it works. On the right hand side, what you are looking at, okay, if the water level depletes the root zone level, it is going to be hitting the farmer because of his profitability. Many of us have been talking since yesterday about sustainability. For me, profitability of a farmer is the most sustainable aspect of agriculture. If it is not profitable to him, he is not going to be bothered about sustainable. So when we talk to farmer, we only talk about the right-hand side of our sheet. Because we tell him, if you follow these things, there are certain things that are going to happen in terms of your yield increase, reduction in pest and diseases, and other benefits. On the left-hand side, now we come to the sustainability part of that, which is going to be benefiting all of us. We tell the farmer there is no need for you to overflood the field. Once the water level touches 1 inch, you can stop. So we initiate a call, and he takes action, or if he does not take action, accordingly there will be escalations. So this is how exactly we have done specific innovations. As you see, when we started in 18-19 time frame, we started off roughly around 9,500 rupees. And our hypothesis was, if I am going to be selling the sensors roughly around 10,000 rupees per farmer, and if the benefit to the farmer is 10 to 20,000 rupees, obviously he's going to be taking that. But farmer is being used to expect everything free of cost or based on subsidy. So we continue to innovate. Second year, we improved the component level basically, and the third year we did the redesign, bringing the cost to 7,000 rupees. And also we added a lot of other revenue sources. So this year we are launched with a mini hub and spoke model, which has brought down the cost to roughly around 5,000 rupees. And next year we are launching on additional combination, which is a combination of LoRaWAN, which is a high-tech engineering kind of thing, plus Bluetooth and computer vision. This is helping us to reduce the cost. Now the reason why I am telling is, when we are talking about scale, especially in agriculture industry, and when you are talking about a farmer who is growing paddy, which is not a high value crop, it is important to be extremely cost conscious. Because when I talk to farmer, he asks me saying that, do I need to spend even 100 rupee? And how much am I going to spend when I invest on 100 rupees is question. So that's where this has been very significantly important. As you can see, our growth is also in proportion to what we are doing. We are looking at reaching roughly around 5 lakh farmers in next 2 to 3 years time. Is there a previous slide? Yeah. No, previous. Sorry, yeah. So, how is it benefiting different ecosystems, right? Because we spoke about farmer-centric. While there is an IoT-based technology and computer vision, AI and ML and all those things, farmer does not understand any of those things. Now, our interest is, how do I bring down the cost of technology or cost of ownership to farmers? So that's where we started looking, who else can actually take interest, or who else can actually use our data. So that's where we brought this live data monitoring and all those things. This dashboard, what you are seeing, is at an individual farmer level or individual plot level, which is helping us to understand what is the water level. As you can see from the first graph, you can see the water is standing at a height of 2 inches above the ground. Second, the middle one, it says basically 1.5 inches. Third one is showing -5 inches. What is essentially telling is, we have the ability to tell at every plot level, not at a farmer level or not at a farm level, but at every minimum unit, which is a plot level, to indicate what is the water level. Now, why is it important? Because of sustainability. When we talk about sustainability, I need to understand which plot is taking more water and which farmer is consuming more water. Then only I'll be able to increase the economics. So that's what we are doing. Second, this has got a direct correlation with carbon emission. So while we started talking about various benefits, carbon was not the first of the entire things. Now we are realizing basically, when you're controlling water, when you're bringing in the traceability and ability to control the irrigation based on interacting with the farmers, you can also reduce the carbon emissions. So that's where this is very important. Next slide. As you can see, for people, especially from corporate like Rohan and other people, we have built this dashboard that can actually tell what is the total number of irrigation that has happened, how much of irrigation hours. Now, if you are talking to government, their concern is, what is in it for me? So these first 2 points, okay, one is number of irrigation cycle, which is directly correlating with the irrigation hours is most important. Because typically in a place like Punjab, when farmers are using around 10 or 15 HP of pumps, government is spending close to 80,000 rupees for a farmer who is having one borewell. That is the amount of subsidy that they are giving. Now imagine around 40% of irrigation water saving, okay, thereby around 40% saving on the electricity, the amount of impact that it can bring out to the government. That is true sustainability for me. Next slide. And while we are working with the farmers, it's most important to understand technology plays a limited role, because he is used to certain way of interacting, certain way of working with the farms and other activities. So we need to work with his behavior, right? So this dashboard is basically helping us to understand how many messages did we send, how many messages were acted upon, and how many people did not, how many calls has to be initiated, and how many time I need to escalate it to the next level, right? So that is helping me saying that who are the farmers who are eager to follow our methods, who are the farmers who are not ready to accept it, and what are the reasons. It's a complete feedback system. Yeah. And this is telling the complete story, saying that why farmers are loving our system. As you can see, initially when we went to farmer, we wanted to talk to them about water stress, reduction in the water consumption, thereby lesser water stress. But farmer said, what is in it for me? I'm not going to be interested about water. That's your problem. That's government problem. And the second problem is, if as a farmer, if I am saving the water, how do I know only I will be able to use it next year? We didn't have an answer to that. So we said, let us not worry about the water. Let's look into other aspects of that. So first thing we said is basically the yield increase, which has come to roughly around 5,000 rupees per hectare. Second one is when the water is not flooded continuously, there will be reduction in the fungal diseases. That is giving additional benefit. Then we brought in the carbon benefit because of the traceability and other element. Now we are talking about who are the other players, okay, who can actually get benefited. Last week we were talking to banking people, and they said basically the underwriting. When they are giving loan to the farmer, if they are able to understand where exactly is doing the mistakes, or where exactly is doing something that should be, that he was not supposed to do, or not following the instruction, that will help them to understand the risk. So the purpose is basically we are trying to bring in different people who can actually pay for the technology, thereby making it more affordable to the farmer.
Malish, we have only a minute left, so
Yes.
I just want to stop the presentation and maybe ask a few questions.
I'm done. Yes.
If you want, you can do one more slide, but
Sure. That's it.
okay. So you've talked about you're solving the water problem. It's a huge problem, 2 crores per hectare, and you're bringing it down significantly. How much have you been able to successfully do with the farmers? Bring it down to what level?
Roughly around 42% water is what we're able to bring it down.
And rice is responsible for 2% of the world's GHG emissions, mainly through methane. What percentage of methane reduction is you can do in these fields?
Roughly, we are talking anywhere between 50 to 60%.
50 to 60.
Yeah, methane emission is directly correlated with the number of flooded days. And what farmers are doing is, for a period of maybe around 100 to 105 days, they are flooding the field. With our technology, they are flooding the field on one day and letting it dry over a period of next 3 to 4 days if it is sandy soil, and around 8 to 9 days if it is clay soil. So the number of dry days are more. As a result, the emissions are reduced.
50 to 60% methane emission is incredible. I mean, you're solving 1% of the world's emission problems. And are you therefore able to capitalize on the carbon markets to actually give your product free to the farmers?
We don't want to give it free because we want farmer to invest into this one, at least a little bit of that. At the same time, whatever money we are generating from carbon, part of that is significant part of that is going back to farmer. The whole idea is to create a sticky point to the farmer to stick with the technology, continue to adapt the technology over a period of next 10 to 20 years.
Thank you very much, all three speakers. It was quite enlightening for all of us, and I want to thank you for taking such great initiatives, all of you. You all are leading the world, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
I'd like to request the dignitaries on stage stand together for a group photograph.
All right, so while we wait for the water session to start, it's only also appropriate for me to make a couple of announcements.